There you go. Right behind you, Brad.
Right on cue.
Bruce.
They're lovely with no words.
Okay. You're signed up, so.
Months ago, every school in West Virginia nominated one employee to be considered for the statewide Service Personnel of the Year award. Now, after narrowing it down by county, 5 finalists remain. Kaylee Riccatilli has more on one Harrison County native who's among those selected in today's Excellence in Education report, sponsored by Davis and Elkins College.
Susan Moran has served as secretary at Preston School in Preston County for nearly 10 years. She began as a substitute secretary while she held another part-time position within the school system. Then, when the full-time spot at Brewston became available, she applied upon a special request.
And the superintendent at that time, Mr. Rick Hicks, came to me and he said, "You are going to apply for that job, correct?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I will."
Now, Moran is up for State Service Personnel of the Year after being nominated by the faculty at Brewston School for her care and dedication. Brewston Principal Jonas Knotts says she is an integral part of their staff.
She really is the hub and the glue that keeps us running as a staff and as a school. The kids know her and love her, parents know her and love her, the staff, teachers, all of us, we would be lost without her.
Moran says her job is to be whatever she needs to be. While her current position focuses on finance, she also takes on some administration, coordinating with parents and kids, and even took on school nurse duties with fellow Secretary Felicia Young this past year. But, like they say, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
I don't really view it as a job. I view it as a calling or a mission, because there's nothing that I wouldn't be willing to do to make this school successful.
Originally from Stonewood, Moran has lived in Preston County for nearly 40 years. Her children, and now grandchildren, attended Brewston School, and Moran credits her performance as secretary to the overwhelming support the school receives from the community. After she was nominated for Service Personnel of the Year, Moran went through an application and interview process to get where she is now. Knott says Moran has more than earned the recognition.
We see day in and day out the hard work, the dedication, the determination that goes in, and to see that finally being recognized on a much wider scale outside of our school and outside of our community, that's really, really special for us.
Honestly, to be a state finalist for Service Personnel of the Year is very humbling, but I'm very grateful, and I thank God for the opportunity just to do a job that I love to do.
The winner of the State Service Personnel of the Year award will be announced on September 12th. Keeping you connected in Brewston Mills, Kaylee Riccatilli, 5 News.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask Mrs. Moran to please come forward. If we could give her a huge round of applause. If you guys want to stay there with her, I think. Bruise between thorns. Closer. You ready, guys? 1, 2, 3, I'll take several. Okay. Good pictures, huh? Again, if we could give Mrs. Moran a huge round of applause.
Well, Mr. Martin's coming back. Good luck. I'm not sure you need it. We're proud of you. everything you do and what you have done. We do appreciate you. Okay, Mr. Martin, next.
Okay, next, we're going to recognize, obviously, we have a bunch of successful young ladies and gentlemen who are involved in our agriculture program at Preston High School. I'm going to have the Preston High School agriculture teachers, Mr. Varner is not in attendance this evening, but I'm going to have Mrs. Samantha Funk and Mrs. Terry Hauser come forward to recognize. We have 16 county students who were recognized for their state FFA degree. We have multiple students who took part and were very successful in the state tractor driving competition. We have a student who was involved in the state creed speaking contest. And we had a recent graduate who was elected as a FFA North Central Vice President office holder. So if Mr. Hauser and Mrs. Funk could come forward.
Terry's gonna need it. He never has a voice.
Ladies first, please.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, so on a couple weeks ago, we took 16 students to the state FFA convention at Cedar Lakes Conference Center in Ripley. And one of those reasons was we had 16 students getting their state FFA degree. And to get their state FFA degree, that is the highest award that a West Virginia FFA member can receive. The only other highest award they can get is their American degree, which we hope they apply for in a couple years. But to get that state degree, they have to do a lot of work. They have to earn and invest at least $1,500 into their projects. They have to participate in at least 5 activities above the chapter level, as well as have at least 25 community service hours. So there's 3 applications, or 1 application and 3 reviews that they have to advance through to get that. And we had 16 members. Only 1 other chapter in the state had more state degrees than us, and they had 17. So hopefully we'll have the most next year. But that is one of the reasons why we went to state convention. We also had tractor drivers. Ben Price, who's not here, competed in the state creed contest. And I know there's some former FFA members here that can probably still recite at least a little bit of the creed. I believe in the future of agriculture, right? And then we have Madison Bolliard, who's not here tonight, that I want to point out. She can't be here tonight because she is in Washington, D.C. at the State Officers Conference, learning how to be a state officer. So I'll let Terry add to that.
A significant celebration we had at this year's state convention was we set an all-time record high attendance or enrollment for FFA statewide. And we just had a meeting in Grafton this morning and talked about conventions going forward. It became a problem because we exceeded the camp capacity by about 100 folks. So we had a few schools that actually stayed in Ripley at the Holiday Inn. So there's going to have to be some changes made if we're going to continue to use that facility so we can rein in the attendance somehow, or maybe seek out another place to host the FFA convention. But it's a good problem to have. As far as Preston goes, we're in the top 5 as far as FFA enrollment statewide. So we're pretty proud of that fact. And this year, it looks like our numbers are up more, so we're anxious to see what that's going to be. Ben couldn't be here tonight. I talked to him earlier. He's in Hayfield. He helped Papa get the second cutting in. So there's probably some others that are involved in that too. But Isabel also served on the nominating committee. It was part of the group that selected this year's new FFA state officers. So good opportunity to go to state convention.
All right, I'm ready to recognize.
Okay, the students want to come on up? Okay. First, we have Isabel Hauser, received her state degree and was on the nominating committee. Emily Schillingberg received her state degree and was a delegate. Rick Deal was one of our large tractor drivers. Carson Stone was also a large tractor driver and a delegate, and a state degree recipient. Marley Phillips, state degree recipient and delegate. Sophia Sereno, state degree recipient and delegate. And Emily Moreland, first time we brought Emily to state convention, I hope she had a good time. She also served as a delegate and received her state degree. Alex Burns, state degree recipient. And Melvin Harsh, state degree recipient, and he also brought his dad along. He was our school bus driver and spent the week with us. Something he'd always wanted to do was go to state convention and never had the opportunity when he was in high school. So I think he had as much fun as his kids. Right. Did I leave anything out? And as Sam mentioned, the state FFA degree process, their applications get reviewed by other ag teachers across the state. We meet in April in Morgantown, and we go through all the applicants usually nearly about 240 is what's been the last several years that we review and make the selection. I miss anything, Sam? All right.
Mr. Hauser and our students, a big round.
One national vice president and one national president. Both ready to turn out. You got your turn.
Okay, give me a big round.
And again, while they're going back, congratulations and thanks for representing Preston High and Preston County the way that you did. It's much appreciated. The honors that you brought back says greatly with our chapter. That's all those, right?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. McCrum. Mr. McCrum. Yes, sir. You're next. It's amazing to me those people's parents ahead of school.
Minutes.
Yeah, you said what?
Just to throw a concern that has been expressed to me, and it's also mine. Do we yet know how many of our students who are regularly or have been employed in school in Preston County are going to either of the schools, alternate schools that have been opened, one in Morgantown, one outside between Masontown and Reedsville?
That one's not open yet, so you know, it doesn't look like that one's going to open until next year. The last was in the paper anyhow.
No, better keep staying on top of that one. That's going to be a bunch of kids.
Yep. Mr. McCrum, one thing I would indicate in response, with most of our schools not having summer secretaries in place, we'll probably have a better idea. Once we start getting secretaries and administrators back in the building, we should get a better idea of withdrawal requests and things of that nature, so we'll have a better idea of what that number is going to look like.
Give me information last year at all. So,
There was some delay for sure, so, yeah.
Okay, moving on This time entertain a motion for the board to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigray. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open.
Next on the agenda,
Hold on, Mr. Evans.
hold on,
Motion passes 4-0.
I forgot that part. Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the meeting minutes from 7/10/23.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigray. Any corrections or discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Okay, board members, you should have had a separate packet there with the superintendent's update. Starting off, attended the status meeting last Wednesday with members of the SBA, with Thrasher Engineering, with members of the general contractor Veritas in regards to the PHS front or secure entryway and exterior door project. It does appear that the project is going to be delayed. Of course, it was supposed to start at the onset of June. We have seen significant delays in terms of, it is a fact that we're not able to get, or Veritas is not able to secure all of the necessary, I don't know if equipment's not the correct word, but all of the necessary doors, supplies, and so forth associated with the project. They have advised Mr. Seymour that it appears that we would be able to start the year with basically normal operation at the front entryway, the back entryway. We don't indicate any disruption of service at this juncture. However, what they did say is when they are ready to begin work, they should be able to give an approximate 2-week heads up. So, obviously at this juncture, Mr. Seymour is working in conjunction with his administrative staff. He'll work with the teachers, obviously, upon their return. He'll be working with Mr. Murray, with Mr. Plum, with Mr. Schmidl, in order to, contingency plan in terms of where the main office will need to move temporarily during the course of the work, potential student flow, parental pickup points, all of those, there's transportation drop-off points and pickup points. All of those will be taken into consideration because we will have a period of time where there will be some level of disruption at the front entryway. They have not given us a definitive timeline. We'll continue to have status meetings and we'll get updates, but I did want to advise the board, it does appear we're going to see a more significant delay than what was initially thought. Electronic Specialty actually, I believe, finished up work today at Brewston in regards to installation of the school's new camera system. In speaking with Mr. Knotts this afternoon, I believe they are going to be due back on Friday to provide training to he and Assistant Principal Martin, and I believe Mr. Schmidl is also going to attend. And I don't know if Mr. Sines will be down there or not, but probably not. But to ensure that those systems are actually pretty similar, that system is very similar to a few of the systems we have in other schools. So I think Mr. Sines already has some familiarity with that system already. So, but we want to make sure that the staff is well acclimated to be able to utilize the system as well. They're going to continue work. They're going to be adding additional cameras at the West Preston School in the elementary wing, some on the exterior, and a few additions in the middle school area. They'll also be updating the key access system and software at West to align with the remainder of the systems they're seeing throughout the county. The firm will finish out work at South Preston for camera ads following their work at West. And once they obviously get to the point with the door entry project at the high school, they'll be working in conjunction with the general contractor on the secure entryway project as well. So that firm is going to be doing a lot of work here in the county. Just wanted to advise the board. Vendor, the final floor was in the county last week to provide maintenance to the gym floors that were completed and updated last year. And all of these projects referenced thus far are primarily a product of the levy, the excess levy that was passed by the voters of Preston County 5 years ago. All of the safety security projects, also the gym floor renovations were all paid for with levy funds, so we're certainly appreciative of the voters of the county for that. The company was actually able to do a screening process and remove the top layer of the oil-based wax and reapply a top skin coat. They've completed that work at West Preston, at Preston High School, and at South Preston. They are hopeful. They were short on supply. They are hopeful to double back and work at Terre Alta will be the first school they hit when they get back. Then they will be going to Brewston, then to Central Preston. So I would anticipate by early next week that work would be completed. I've been in consultation with the building principals of the schools they did not get done to advise them and update them of the status. Hometown pressure washing is tentatively scheduled to complete pressure washing work at the Aurora School. Mr. Murray anticipated probably as early as next week to get that work done. He's also hopeful to get some excavation work done in relation to the bleacher project that was via the Trenton Foundation at the track and field complex. In addition, he would also like to get some excavation to expose the heating system elements at Fellows,ville to assess repair options prior to the winter season. So maintenance crew's been very busy and continues to be very busy. Custodial crew's been operating shorthanded throughout the summer. We have posted on tonight's agenda, there are multiple short-term contracts to assist in finishing up school preparations in advance of the return of employees on August 16th. Those were some of the unfulfilled contracts that we're posting, some shorter contracts that some of our employees, as they finish up an existing contract, may be able to pick up some additional work, again, to try to get those the buildings in good shape prior to the start of school. The annual Principals Academy is scheduled beginning on Monday, July 31st through Wednesday, August 2nd at Capon State Park. You can see a highlight of events. The first day, we'll do a typical principals meeting, director updates. We're also going to be working collaboratively. Principals, we're going to be reviewing House Bill 2890, which deals with the modifications to a lot of the disciplinary code in West Virginia. Building principals are going to be devising school-level plans to work towards compliance with that particular policy. We will have Mrs. Cagle from ICLE working in conjunction with our directors, working on a variety of topics, including budget and purchasing, the book study plan that we've been working on throughout the course of the year, the one thing plan that principals have been asked to work on, obviously calendarizing our already and literacy plan development, and also working in conjunction with our professional development planning. Jim Harris from Marshall University will be on site on 8/2, and we'll also be working with positive behavior supports, the SAT process, and behavioral response and alignment. So we have a very busy 3 days. Very excited to work with our principals over that time to get some needed work done in advance of the school year. Opening day staff development plans have been ongoing with plans for a large-scale opening session at Knight Stadium. I'll be speaking, but that will definitely not be the highlight of the morning. We have a noted author who a lot of our staff members have been doing a book study throughout the summer, is going to be on site as well. So we're very excited about that and a number of follow-up sessions. Just to kind of advise the board, the 17th is going to be primarily training in the school buildings where administrators will be leading those trainings. The 18th is a faculty senate and prep day. And then the 25th will be a follow-up early year professional development session. Communications are in process and will be sent out to the staff the first week of August. Professional and service contracts, I know that I appreciate Mrs. Varner and Mrs. James and Mrs. Sheets working on getting contracts out today. I think the vast majority of employee contracts were mailed out today. And I do applaud the ladies. I mean, it's important to get those contracts out, get commitments from our employees, but that's a process that's very timely and a lot of work involved, so we certainly appreciate their efforts in trying to get those out in a timely manner. Summer school is wrapped up at all locations except Central Preston, with them still having an Energy Express site, and Preston High School for any extended school year students. We'll have reporting on summer school a little bit on a future agenda. We'll make sure that we report out on the progress made at this year's summer schools. I met with the entire central office staff on the 13th to discuss job duties and responsibilities, lay out expectations, and work on time-sensitive matters. Board members, I tried to include within your packets That's just a guideline sheet that aligns with our employee code of conduct that I've had all of our central office staff sign. And I've also given the existing employee code of conduct for their review as well. Board members, that's just a copy of the county office extensions and email addresses for your use. The school calendar was approved back in the spring. Our tentative staggered start schedule, an organizational chart that breaks out the duties and responsibilities of central office directors and secretarial staff. You also have gotten a copy of our central office staff meeting dates for the 23-24 school year, Board of Education meeting dates, which were approved back at our last meeting in June, and our 23-24 school data meetings, in which we meet quarterly with each school around the county. You've also gotten the goal-setting conferences in which I have set up to work with our central office directors, and a breakout of whom will be evaluating whom, in other instances, the directors and whom they may be evaluating as well. We also have a copy of the principal meeting dates and times, and I just, again, wanted the board members to make sure you had that information at your disposal to kind of build your calendars out as well. So. Let's see if anything else here. Mr. Sines has indicated the iPad preparations have been completed with the exception of new student enrollees. Plans are to begin laptop preparations this week. I know you've been working on the image and working on trying to work with some things with our GoGuardian filtering system. I appreciate the efforts of Mr. Sines and his 4 staff members. They have gone through hundreds and hundreds of iPads in preparation, and by the time they're done, they'll have gone through thousands of devices. So certainly appreciate all the hard work that Paul and his staff have put forth to get devices ready for the academic year. One thing we have noted to schools is we do not anticipate distributing any devices in advance of the academic year. There have been some years where we've done distributions at back-to-school events. At this point, because we want to be sure that we do the necessary thing in terms of cyber safety and so forth prior to issuing devices, we're holding those back to the start of school. Board member self-appraisals, I think I forwarded an email. Those are due by August 15th. We do have 2 completed. Just be sure that you're actively working on those. Don't let me know when you finished it, though, because I'm not supposed to know who does it when. So, board members, a couple other things I did want to put forth. Mrs. Varner plans to have a new teacher orientation. That's our 2nd new teacher orientation tomorrow. She said she has approximately 14 employees coming in. Mr. Sines has already done device preparations. But we're trying, one thing that we came out of model schools is we're really trying to look at a more systematic approach to our employee intake process. We're doing, the sessions with Mrs. Varner, I think are very regimented. It's almost like she reviews the employee handbook. We do the devices, we get all of their access, all the various system accesses set up. But we are going to have a second-based session where our teachers are going out and meeting with their building level principals, orient themselves to the building and other topics that we've kind of relayed to the administrators as a points of emphasis. And then we'll do a 3rd follow-up session with them on the 25th of August to, again, primarily there to get them with their mentors and to also make sure, anything, any struggles they've had through that first week of school, that we try to head off those issues. It's our intent to try to schedule in sessions throughout the course of the year, but I do feel that was one product of model schools is we went to several sessions where the process of employee intake was something that we felt was really important in regards to long-term retention of employees. So we feel that's really important. The pre-K issue that we've been working on, I would say that I've been in consultation with some of the parents on the South Preston wait list to assess transportation options for them from the Tunnelton area potentially to the Fellows-Ville area, working in conjunction with Mrs. Miller on that as well. I felt like I got a positive response from most of the parents I've spoken to on that front. So if we're not able to necessarily accommodate the location at South Preston, we're hopeful that we can work with them to ensure that they've got transportation options to a program in the county as well. So, Mr. Huggins, that's all I have at this time, unless the board members have any questions for me.
Just one thing before I ask for questions. We have training, board does, September 8th and 9th in Charleston. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Probably going to have to change my scheduled times to work with my directors, which is okay. That's an easy one to fix.
So just so you can put that on.
It's hard to build that calendar out because something always comes up. So.
Okay, this time, any questions for the superintendent?
Yeah, I was wondering if Matt had a chance to check out the floors at Kingwood Elementary.
Right now, yes, he has some concerns with some of the classrooms at Kingwood Elementary. We are going to be hiring some additional staff in terms of those short-term contracts. We're hoping that we can double back some crews to address any areas of concern there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions for the superintendent?
I just want to say thank you for reaching out on the South Fellows-Ville busing as an out-of-the-box, trying to solve
Yeah.
some things there for our parents that are still frustrated.
Yeah, I'm hoping that'll work, and we
Truly appreciate it.
and we're hopeful still maybe that some slots will become available, but we're trying to look at some contingencies in the absence of that.
Anything else? Okay, hearing nothing, moving on. Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the service personnel agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Zigray, second by Mr. Kisner.
Yeah, I think
It was
earlier.
close. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the professional agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Zigray, second by, Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Tatham.
Tatham, yep.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that we go into executive session for a legal matter.
Second.
Okay, it has been properly moved by Mr. Kisner to go into executive session, second by Mr. Zigray to deal with a legal matter, a professional matter. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
We'll have to do a roll call vote on this,
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Huggins.
why I'm looking down, Mr. Tatham.
Yes.
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 Yes, 4-0.
Okay, it's 6:44. Mr. Sines, would you be able to kill the feed, please?
Thank you, Mr. Sines. At this time, I entertain a motion to come back in session.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Mr.,
Or you made the motion, you said I move.
oh, okay,
said
I
I
did.
moved.
Second by Mr., I'm sorry, I stated it wrong. I made the motion to come in. Mr. Tatham seconded.
All right, hold on.
Thank you, I messed that up. Well, it doesn't matter, but,
Okay, ready, Mr. Huggins?
okay, this also is a verbal vote. Mr. Tatham?
Yes.
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 7 PM.
Okay, there was no action taken on the legal issues of the professional agenda. So we go back, it has been properly moved and seconded for the board to approve the professional personnel.
Mr. President, I need to recuse myself due to relationship with one of the candidates.
Yes, sir, thank you. We'll wait till you leave the room. Okay, any discussion on the professional personnel? Any questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Okay, motion passes 3-0 with one abstention.
Mr. Kisner, you can come back now, if you can hear me. Come on back. Yep.
Yes.
We'll wait till you're back. Next on the agenda, at this time, I entertain a motion for the board to direct Superintendent Martin to begin work in convening a levy renewal committee during the month of August 2023 to begin preliminary work on the development of a possible levy call.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Mr. Zegray. Discussion. Real quick, so that you know, this actually came from Ms. Feathers, who thought we needed to, as a board, direct Mr. Martin to do that before we started one.
Mr. Huggins, I missed that. Who was the second on that? I apologize.
It was Mr.
Me.
Okay, Mr. Kisner. Okay, sorry about that.
So is there anything for Mr. Martin? That's all everything we're doing. Okay, hearing no questions or discussion, I'll call for the vote.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Huggins, before we proceed, one thing I did include was just a tentative timeline that's typical. We can certainly accelerate those actions. Like, for example, I think the example there didn't have a levy committee convened until like November. We certainly can go earlier than that. If that's the board's desire, I will communicate once we have the previous membership contacted. Once we have an established meeting date, I'll advise the board as such. And board members can participate, but no more than 2 members, correct? Okay. At any one time, right?
Just in response to that, I mean, I appreciate the offer as far as acceleration goes. I know very little to none about this process, so I defer to your expertise on timeline and speed, personally.
And that's really kind of, I'm in the same boat because as the teacher, I did not do that part. I set up meetings. So, okay, next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the attached MOU between Preston County Schools and the Preston County Commission and Sheriff for School Resource Officer Services.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zegray. Any questions or discussion?
Who drafted the changes, or who proposed the changes, I guess?
Before Mr. Bittinger left, he had reviewed the document, but I would say Mr. Schmidl has been working in conjunction with Sheriff Pritt and with Officer Lewis to work on these revisions. I know they've gone back and forth. I mean, honestly, I feel like it's been a really positive communication between the involved parties. I also had Mrs. Kerstetter review for any fiscal matters of review. But this is a process we go through on an annual basis. But really, this was any of the revision work was primarily done in conjunction between Mr. Schmidl and Sheriff Pritt and Officer Lewis.
Okay. And the 200 going down to 180,
What we were seeing is those day commitments where we didn't have students in session unless we have a defined professional development need. Now, I will say, for example, Officer Lewis is scheduled for SRO training in Wheeling at the end of the month. So those are days outside of the 200-day contract where we kind of worked in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department in order to avail him of that time to receive training. But they felt it prudent to just, I guess, consistently is his level of involvement on those days when there weren't students present wasn't high, and they felt it was probably of greater benefit to the sheriff office in that instance, and it could result in a slight reduction in our cost as well.
so like, I think part of it when I was reviewing, like, there are certain after-school events that we require, or that we suggest and things like that. Does going from the 200 down to the 180 leave us where we're paying like an overtime rate for those kind of things, since now they're outside of the usual?
We were typically subject to that anyway beyond the 8-hour workday. I mean, if he's working 40 consistently, any extended thing beyond the typical.
In a 40-hour week?
Correct.
So if the extracurricular activities that he's at falls within 40 hours, then it's at the normal rate. So
correct.
We're only doing the overtime anytime it's longer than 40 hours in a week.
That's
as
correct.
normal. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And you actually asked the question I wanted to make sure, is that but all parties were involved?
Yes. Now, I would say, board members, if this is approved, then we would submit this to the county commission for their review. And if they're in full agreement as to the term, I mean, if they would want any changes, we might have to bring it back forth, but we'll go through that. This hasn't deviated significantly from years past, so I would not anticipate any significant changes requested.
Okay, anything else?
Is this full amount in 14.1, is that covered by the levy?
Yes.
And it's for a 1-year contract?
Correct. Now, I would say that amount is probably a little in excess of that, but that can also head off any of those potential overtimes and things that Mr. Kisner alluded to.
This amount here?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0. Board members, I will get this submitted to Mr. Raybeck with the county commission to get forth before the commission.
Okay, next is only information. Mr. Kisner had asked if he could address.
So I apologize. I am running frantic and outside of myself. So the revision that I had printed, I actually forgot, along with my pants, which is why I'm in shorts tonight, with the things that I'm doing at Aldersgate Camp this week. But so I'm a little bit different revision than what I'm going with. But just let me preface that the steps taken at the previous meeting, I believe to be completely correct procedurally. With that said, I would like to provide the following guidance from some of the associations that assist in how we operate as a board. The National School Board Association website says the following: school board members are tasked with an important responsibility: education. School board members are more than policymakers. They are advocates for students and their parents. Education is not a line item on the budget. It is the only item. The school board is the community's educational watchdog. The West Virginia School Board Association provides the following: members of a board of education occupy a fiduciary position and under a duty to make detailed inquiry into any matter which appears to be wrong. Failure to do so is negligence and under appropriate circumstances may constitute a violation of the law. A public office is in the position of a fiduciary, and he is under a public officer, a school board member, and is under an obligation to serve the public with the highest fidelity and undivided loyalty. The public officer is bound to act primarily for the benefit of the public and must perform the duties of his office honestly, faithfully, and to the best of his ability. I would summarize these to say that our focus and our purpose is education. Everything else is tangential, and the only timeline for making those decisions is how long it takes. I would like to discourage other members of the board from taking any action that limits any member from carrying on their duty as described. I hope that each of you are already aware and doing your best to serve in this way and follow these guidelines. I aspire to do that myself. And in these board meetings, which are our only forum to have discussions and to deliberate the matters that come before us. I would offer that at our previous meeting, there are multiple statements in conflict and need of clarification. If other board members felt that they understood these conflicts and these facts and situations, that's fantastic. However, I would hope that we would all be in agreement that we want all members to feel that way and to be in that place, as well as the public to have all of the information regarding any decision that's before us. Due to the fact that we will likely be having this discussion again next year, it is not as simple for us to discuss and clarify now due to the way that the law works. So I appreciate your consideration. I enjoy working and serving with all of you, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is I entertain a motion for the board to approve the revision of policy R-3-24-3, high school promotion and retention on the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigray. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Is this state that they're reducing the number of credits?
This would just get us in alignment with the current state graduation requirements. And that was real, I mean, Mrs. Layton, I think, tried to write a brief precursor there. Please consider the changes to the policy below. There are inconsistencies that need to be fixed that match state requirements and other sections of our policy. So this is just primarily to get in line with, to ensure that our local practices are in line with state practices.
Alrighty.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve Preston County Schools Policies 3-32, R3-32-1 through R3-3210 and 332-1 on second read for formal approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Mr. Zigray. Any questions or discussion?
I'd just like to reiterate that I still feel that AI has no place in an educational setting. I do appreciate the time, Mr. Sines, and the research that has been provided, the background, the making sure that our policy is sound based on how things are proceeding in our culture and our country. I still think that the risks associating with the allowance of usage of AI, of artificial intelligence, far outweigh any benefit. I would point out that it would be extremely hard to prove citations. Artificial intelligence is ever changing. It is trained, it is learned, and to be able to prove that something came to a student in one form and that they rewrote it in another form is going to be very difficult. For students to determine that the information they're getting is from a scholarly source is going to be very difficult. I won't harp. I still feel like for our students right now, we are way too early in the evolution of this as a product to have in our handbook a way for students to utilize it.
Yeah, and Mr. Kisner, I do understand the concerns on that front. I think we were simply trying to reference the potential for AI use within our policies so that we have a means of, for example, if we're seeing abuse in the use of that we have some means to better deal with it. My concern is that in not addressing it at all, we don't really have any recourse. I mean, inevitably, I think students will use this technology at some junction.
Well, for clarification, I mean, my proposal would be that our policy is, it's not allowed to be used. I mean, just if I'm not being clear on what my, and again, it's just my personal opinion, and I appreciate you engaging. Again, I truly appreciate the resources, and that I do feel like those that are trying to help with this policy are doing amply so what is considered the norm right now. That is not my contention. I just personally think that it's a bad direction for our kids.
And that's the whole purpose of that policy is that you want a recourse right now. If you turn this stuff by AI, you can't tell right there, but if you verify that it is by AI, you have no recourse on that. It's not part of the cheating policy or anything.
Yeah.
That's what purpose of AI is to actually put something on there and say, hey, verify this was done by AI. Now we're referring back to our cheating policy.
Yeah.
It's not encouraging you to use AI, but it's saying we need something out there for if it is caught on there, what's our recourse?
Right, and all I'm saying, I'm not saying that we're encouraging by saying, hey, please use this, but I will say that when you give rules by which you can use something, it ultimately would be part of my defense, right? Like if I do something, I'm saying, well, you have policy on how to use it, which means innately you're saying that I can use it, which is an encouragement not to. Anyways, again, that's just my personal, and I appreciate it. Thank you again, Mr. Sines.
Anything else?
And board members, I would say that the references that Mr. Kisner's alluding to in terms of AI are primarily found on page 12 is really where I think the majority of the information that he's referencing. So if you wanted to look there.
Page 12 of the technology policy revisions.
Of the 30-page attachment there, page 12, highlighted in yellow, is that I think some of the policy reference that Mr. Kisner alluded to.
You're correct, Mr. Tatham. It's the attachment called technology policy revisions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, it's the Word doc.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's not those bottom three.
Yeah, not the resources, but the actual body of the policy
Yes.
that we're changing.
Okay. Do we have any insight from teachers on what their recommendation is?
At this point, no. I mean, we can certainly bring forth the existing policy with a, what I would say a teacher group to garner additional feedback. We certainly wanted to get something in place in advance of the academic year. This could certainly be brought forth with line item revision with teacher input. And if that's something that the board would like to see occur, at this time of year, while we don't have teachers under contract, it's been a little more challenging. But if that's something that's desired by the board, we certainly can bring this specific section of policy to get teacher feedback as to where they may fall on that, and we could bring forth we could bring forth potentially recommended changes if that's the will of that group.
I think that would be prudent. I agree with Mr. Kisner that there's concerns with it. I understand that there needs to be a policy, so I'm seeing it from your perspective, but I think we should continue to look at this, so.
Yeah, one of the things, if you don't have a policy, I go back to Cisco networking. If you don't have a policy, our kids are bright enough and smart enough to do lots of things. So by having a policy that Mr. Sines and them have came forward with at this point, it gets us a starting point. And I know Mr. Sines well enough in the technology, if he starts seeing the abuse, he's also going to come back with other recommendations. And the same with our teachers, with Mr. Tatham that you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the guidelines for use, like personally, I can understand how it could be a supplemental aid for brainstorming, et cetera. I probably have a problem with it being used as a reference and citation because, I mean, from what I understand of like GTP, it's writing it. Mm-hmm. Where, how could, if it's writing it, be creating a primary source? It kind of defeats the whole purpose of doing it. So I definitely think it should be brought back on a future agenda and so we can revise it with insight from English teachers and et cetera, history teachers.
And secondary level,
Secondary
because
level.
I don't envision this is going to be near, middle and high.
Yep.
Okay, and I think we're all kind of in agreement in supporting what you said, Mr. Sines. I just think it gives us it gets us a starting point.
And I truly appreciate you being ahead of it and taking initiative, to try to get ahead of things. Again, I would love to see it blocked from our school devices and the lack of usage personally from where I'm at on the.
It sounds like from the national level too, there's still a lot being done.
Yeah.
I would think at the collegiate level, in higher ed, it's going to be a huge challenge. It's going to be very challenging.
Wasn't there when I was there. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Sorry, guys. Motion passes 3-1. Board members, what I will say is once we get a return to staff, we'll work to try to convene a committee of secondary ELA and history teachers to review, particularly that subsection of policy, to see if we can garner some feedback and bring, if that's the will of that group, we can bring forth a potentially revised policy.
And also remind them, Mr. Martin, that could change during the year.
Sure.
If Mr. Sines and them start seeing things, we don't need to wait, bring it back and get it on the agenda. I think that's what all of us are trying to say. Okay, moving on to information. This information is being supplied to the board to advise of any personnel or contracted personnel that would be permitted to possess firearms in Preston County school facilities as per West Virginia Code 61-7-11A. That's an informational. Mr. Martin.
Yeah, simply board members, I just wanted to supply the policy in which any instances where personnel would be permitted to have firearms on the premises. That would primarily entail, Officer Lewis is a law enforcement officer employed at the county level. So he does have a weapon on the premises. And Mr. Schmidl, in his capacity as a retired law enforcement officer, meets the criterion that is listed as well. At this point, those are the only two personnel members in the county that I believe would have, could have a weapon on them legally as per West Virginia Code. Just wanted to lay forth that out there for the board's review.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any intention of asking Mr. Schmidl to, have we had a discussion with whether he intends to or asking him if,
Yes,
I personally would like to see him carrying. But
Mr. Schmidl had just indicated that he wanted to make sure to bring this issue forth before the board. You know, I can even reach out to legal, but I feel that the code is pretty specific in that
just
instance.
says that he's allowed. Yeah.
Again, this was just more for the board's knowledge of who could legally, would be entitled to have that on the premises. So.
Thank you very much.
A quick question with that. Yes. If the school resource officer is employed by the county commission, the sheriff's office, and they have, I noticed in there, $1 million of liability insurance for that officer. If we have a school employee that is carrying a weapon, do we have that as a rider on our liability?
And that's one thing I can check on, obviously, to be sure. I mean, legally, he could carry, but we want to make sure that we have the proper coverages if he were to. Understood.
Right. Great question.
Definitely, very good question.
Great question.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Huggins, that's all I had for that.
And I will tell you, I just assumed since he was employed, that tells you why it's important we have a board. I assumed because he was employed by us, he would be covered under insurance. I didn't even think because of the gun. So thank you. Ongoing literacy, it's discussion information. Mr. Martin.
Yeah, just wanted to put, again, this has been an ongoing matter or ongoing item. We actually have 9 district teams down at the Invest Conference in Morgantown this week for literacy and numeracy. We had West Preston would have definitely been in attendance today because of their status. They're required to attend the first day and last day of the conference. But again, we'll have 9 of our 10 schools will be represented. We had one team that also attended a session, a Charleston session as well. The conference's primary design is to improve reading and math instruction in West Virginia with an emphasis of the use of science of reading techniques. Also wanted to advise the board, as per previous board action, we had teams of teachers and coaches were in the board last week on Monday through Wednesday, working on the revision of existing RCD units. The group anticipates to complete their work on planned sessions on August 7th through 9th at the Board of Education. As one thing that was requested, I know at that point of time, was at the conclusion of these sessions, could some products be brought forth for the board's review? So I've asked Mrs. McDonald that when that process is complete, if we could please bring some of those products forth for the board's review so you can see an example of the fruits of the labor of those. But I would say, I came in and spoke to the group at the tail end of their work, and I think they diligently worked extremely hard over the 3 days. And I'm excited to see what the finished product that they'll come up with later in August. So I just wanted to avail the board with that. And Mrs. McDonald asked for the board to email any feedback on the proposed literacy plans that were provided on the 710 agenda. I believe those were submitted from South Preston and Aurora. If any board member would like to supply feedback, to just please send that to Mrs. McDonald as soon as possible, so that we can work with the other schools to get their plans before the board as well. So, Mr. Huggins, that's all I have at this time.
Okay, anything else for the superintendent from that? Hearing nothing, continuing on. At this time, entertain a motion for the board to approve the Algebra 1 textbook pilot from College Board for 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zegray. Questions or discussion?
I know we got an email from Ms. Layton, but I didn't get that email today until I was here, so I don't know if we know or not. But essentially, the pilot is for digital and textbook.
Correct. Well, it's a consumable.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. But a physical, tangible consumable item.
Okay, so it's a consumable workbook.
Yes.
With digital textbook.
Digital access as well.
Yeah. So, and again, you may not, Ms. Layton may be the only person who can answer this, but I mean, do we know, did the teachers literally prefer the digital access with the tangible workbook?
I think it was an accompany, I think in buying the consumable, that the digital access was provided in conjunction. I don't know that you could buy one versus the other.
But do they sell a print? Like, were teachers given the option of doing the pilot with all print materials versus doing the pilot with print consumable?
To my knowledge, the teachers initiated this request and were in line knowing we're comfortable proceeding with the product as is, but I wasn't directly involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the only thing. I mean, do teachers feel like they can come and say, I would prefer to go back to all print materials? Like, is that an option? Is that an option teachers or staff?
I mean, as we get into the textbook adoption process, I'm sure there may be vendors that would offer a text-only option. I mean, that would be something that would, once that established team, the textbook review team is, they'll get an opportunity to review, all the various state-approved options, and they will come forth with a recommendation as a result. With this being a year in advance of it, I think this was something that was initiated by algebra teachers at the high school, and they thought it might be beneficial to see, again, another potential option in advance of making a huge curricular purchase that would be coming up in the coming year.
Okay. I mean, the only thing I'd say is, if we could, Mr. Martin, anybody who's a participant in this pilot, I would like to know a count of how many of them felt that they would like digital textbook with consumable textbook. Like, if they were literally given the option, which way would they go? Would they prefer digital textbook with consumable print, or with a printable paper consumable versus complete text across the board? I'm curious about that input from the pilot.
The one thing is probably the difference in cost, because you start buying textbooks for them for 1 year, you're talking a huge chunk of change.
And I understand cost is something we certainly have to weigh. I would be curious in how the teachers feel. I mean, specifically, if that is something that they think that would be beneficial. I mean, education has a cost, and we only have so many dollars, and I do not disagree with that whatsoever. But I am curious about where teachers truly are standing. So if we're going to invest in a pilot here, I would like to know, do they think that this is the best route to deliver education?
Okay, so poll the participants of the pilot of their preference versus consumable versus, text across the board options.
I think from where I'm hearing it is what Mr. Kisner is saying is consumable, you consume it, that we know that that's tangible, right? That's a hard copy. I didn't see Mrs. Layton's email today because I haven't checked email today, but from reading the brief snippet on here, I interpret this to mean that there's a tangible workbook that's consumable, and then there's a digital version of that also that's included for free.
That's
with
correct.
it, basically. And then they're giving 4 teachers' manuals that are free too, that they're giving us a discount on.
Yeah, because this is a limited number.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, what I'm getting at is it's a consumable, tangible workbook and a digital version of it.
That's correct.
Okay. And we're doing that for 1 year to see if we want it, because currently they have nothing.
Yes,
Students.
and one thing too is that I do think is advantageous is of course this curriculum aligns with the SAT, which is the testing implement that's used with our 11th grade students. And it's also a college placement exam that's tied to Promise Scholarship and things of that nature. So there would be some potential value in that. We're hopeful that a curriculum that more closely correlates to the SAT might equate to better scores.
But just if I can clarify, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but just to clarify, because I didn't understand that. You're saying that the consumable, there's a print consumable, but there's also a copy of that digitally. But this also includes a digital textbook, right?
I didn't get that impression.
I mean, like this still gives the actual curriculum as part of this pilot that we're looking at. Am I misunderstanding that?
That's not my impression. My impression of it is this is not a textbook, and because this is not what the board has.
Yeah, it's more of a supplement.
It's a supplement.
Yes.
This is not your primary resource that we're supposed to be furnishing students, because that's something else.
Okay.
And I don't know what that is.
This is strictly a consumable or a workbook that we're going to use with whatever curriculum we're using.
Yeah, because currently the students have nothing.
Right, okay.
That's tangible, and they also they do not have a digital textbook either.
Yeah, okay.
Is my understanding. So we're plugging that gap with a tangible consumable now for this school year so that they have something other than videos, RCDs, et cetera. We're giving them an off-the-shelf curriculum through a tangible workbook.
Okay.
That also has digital for kids that want it, and it's free, and it's included. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's as I understood it, Mr. Tatham, yes.
That's how I understand it.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
And I think what Mr. Kisner is getting at is ask the teachers for whenever we do the full thing, would you like to have a consumable? Would you like to have a digital version of that consumable? And would you like to have a printed textbook and possibly a digital version of that same textbook? Is that pretty much what you're getting at?
Yes. I am curious if our educators feel that if without them have to consider the fiscal restraints, do they believe digital textbook versus physical textbook? And I apologize. I thought this whole pilot also included a textbook. I didn't understand it was just the consumable thing.
And
I'm just curious on the feedback from our educators.
Okay.
Like how they feel our students learn, how they feel is most beneficial for them to deliver education to the students.
And can we have both? Because I think there's probably going to be some students that would love to have digital because you don't forget it and you always have it with you. But if you can also get the paper with it, or if you buy the paper, if you automatically get the digital for free, then it's 2 birds with 1 stone.
Okay, understood.
And thank you.
Same thing with the teachers. You may have
Same thing for
some
the teachers. I mean, but and I'd like to thank the administration for fulfilling this gap and doing it, and so that because algebra is very important.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate the responsiveness to this.
Good.
Okay, anything else? Hearing nothing, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0. Oh, shoot.
This time entertain a motion for the board to approve the schedule of checks to be written.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zegray. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0. Board members, one caveat I wanted to add there. Procedurally, in speaking with Mrs. Kerstetter, checks will be printed following the board meeting. In the past, checks have been printed in advance and been held until following the board meeting's completion. At this point, no checks will be cut until following the board's meeting. We were working with a different reporting option today. I know we had an issue where I think the last column was cut off that had the valuations. We did add in the agenda, and I apologize about that today. I did not notice that last column was cut off. Mr. Kisner, I know you would send a correspondence in, but that will probably more typically what your reporting option will look like moving forward. That was a recommendation that the Department of Ed provided a sequel that we think is a pretty decent reporting option that gives you a lot of the information that you're looking for. So,
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the budget journal entry 101.
Did we pass the checks?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Sorry, my memory's not there. So moved on the budget journal entry.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Tatham. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0. Oh, maybe. So it's not letting me progress it. There we go.
You ready?
Yep.
At this time, entertain a motion for the board to approve the proposed modifications to the 23-24 supplemental salary scale.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Mr. Kisner. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, what's the duties of the art cohort and music cohort?
Okay,
that we added?
Mr. Zigray, one thing, Mrs. Layton had been off last week, but I asked her, if you look in your packet immediately following the information related to get to it.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought that would be a question. So the proposed positions on there would be 2 extracurricular activities referred to as art and music cohort. What was the verbiage that was used there? It says here leaders, but I think the verbiage was
Art
coordinator.
coordinator.
Okay. For the art position, they are to plan and lead professional development for all county art teachers during scheduled staff development sessions in conjunction with the curriculum directors, to serve as a liaison for all art teachers to the county curriculum directors for needs and concerns, to coordinate countywide arts festival together with the music cohort leader to be held in the spring. So ultimately, like a large arts and music I don't know what I'd say, celebration that would be coordinated in the spring. Arrange for student art projects to be created and displayed for this event, and coordinate dates, location, parent communications, items for the student. On the music side, very similar. Really on the music side, very similar. This position would be funded from Title IV, and from my understanding is this would be an expenditure that's much in line with the spirit of aspects of Title IV. Certainly going to encourage, and we've done events of this nature. I can remember years ago we did like a 5th grade life expo event. This was several years back, but this was asked. We were hopeful, and we tried to put this in line with a lot of the existing coordinator positions that we have in place. We wanted to make sure that the salary was in line with that, but there needed to be commensurate duties associated with that as well. So. That's the description of the 2 events. In regards to any changes to the athletic trainer position, I would say this. What we're looking at that is we're finding with the athletic trainer position is you can't always find one person who is willing to take that contract on at the 1st of August through early November for, it's not a small amount of money, but it's a significant time. It's an every night after school, Friday nights for multiple hours. So what we're trying to do is, if we can get multiple individuals that have interest in taking on that position, it gives us backup considerations as well. With high school football, if you do not have a trainer present, you cannot practice, you cannot play. So it's important that you have contingencies worked in this instance. But because it was one lump contract and there was no breakout, because our thought process was a after-school practice shouldn't be valued the same as, say, a 8-hour road trip to Beckley. Like, we thought there should be some breakout as to, an away game would be paid at a specific rate, a home game would be paid at a specific rate. A summer practice is a more involved and lengthier period of time. A typical after-school practice is a shorter period of time. So what this was done is really to look at the total valuation of the contract, look at the calendar, and then break out to keep within the confines of the budget, but assign specific amounts for certain activities, so that if you would have more than one person fulfilling the contract, that you could pay them appropriately for the service that they offer on a given date. If they worked an after-school practice, by this, we would say that would be paid at $40. If they worked an away road game, they would be paid, I believe, $90 under this policy. But all this would keep us within the confines of the budget.
So we're providing a lump sum to be used on these item by item basis.
Correct. And the proposal is at $3,500 to provide the trainer services. Now, we've also, and this has been within the supplemental, we also have an opportunity that if we were to have a large-scale event that we felt warranted the need for a trainer, that I believe it's a $75 rate paid for a 4-hour shift. We've had to incorporate that at times when we've had very large wrestling, track, cross-country events where you have hundreds of athletes. We felt it would probably behoove the board to have a trainer on site in those instances, but we needed a specific rate of pay to pay those folks.
We're still covering just gas.
I wish that we had trainer services
Yeah.
more frequently. It's kind of scary that, the potential for injury and so forth that you have there, cardiac events and things of that nature.
That's-
It's
very
still a lot of
worrisome.
donation on the person taking it.
Yes.
It's huge. It truly is huge. And it's not necessarily, I'm not sure if this is where it goes or not, but you brought up an issue that makes sure. Do all of our schools have AEDs? I know Preston High does, I know we have portable.
They all have them. Last year, there was an issue that Fellows,ville did not. I know Mr. Bittinger made an order on that. I can ascertain if Fellows,ville has on the site, but all other schools, yes, they do have an AED.
And to make sure with that AED, the batteries are current?
Well,
Because you have to check those.
I'd like to work in conjunction with Mr. Schmidl on that, and his background, like he's trained, he has
But I'm
medical
just
training
saying
as
to
well.
Make sure, because you're looking at the athletic stuff, because the number of people we have on the Hill at some of those large events, a cardiac arrest is possible.
Sure.
And besides with the kids.
Well, just a normal school day, you've got
Yeah.
hundreds of people, so.
That's why, I'm not sure that belonged there, but that's just a question.
Understood.
Because it's with the athletic director or athletic trainer. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, okay, so with these job descriptions, I'm assuming now that the art festival and the music festival are gonna be required for each school to attend.
We want to work with the schools to get participating students. There would likely have to be some type of, I would equate this almost like to the all-county band process where there needs to be some type of criterion to select students. But ideally, yes, we would like participation from all of our schools if at all possible. Some of our schools are very, very small and might not have a large number of kids. Right.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda is informational, the maintenance work order systems update.
Yeah, Mr. Huggins, I just would like to say I appreciate Mr. Sines and the time that he put in compiling the data from the maintenance work order system. We were able to give you a work order breakout for the 22-23 school year and then any open work orders. I still feel, I'm going to need to work with Mr. Murray. There are some sitting work orders that I still feel need to be advised as to the status. But Mr. Sines, thank you for all your work and effort, and first of all, in devising the system, but I think the reporting options that are now available are much, much better, and really, in my preparations for a board meeting each week, the ability to be able to create those reports efficiently is very, very helpful, so thank you.
In designing a program, it's easier for them to use even on their phone.
Yeah, I'm concerned we're falling short with our cleaning duties, and we're gonna fall into that same thing Preston High fell into. That we're not getting enough accomplished in the summertime, and we're just letting it ride for another year, let it ride for another year. So,
Mr.
it's a
Ziegler.
concern.
Yeah, and Mr. Ziegler, I would agree, you know, we had 2 maintenance vacancies. We do have them posted, we do have applicants for those. Right now, once we get the testing process, we'll get those folks in place. But it's definitely a challenge. We've got a lot of facilities, a lot of ground to cover, and I agree, it's definitely an ongoing concern.
Any other questions or comments for Superintendent on maintenance?
I'll just say I appreciate that, I think that in the schedule of checks, I saw one on this, that we got the fire system in Terrata. Looked like they did some work on that this week, and hopefully that'll take some off of the custodians and stuff, because they were resetting that a lot.
Yes, I believe ASAP was on site, and I
Yeah.
think they got that resolved, so we're happy that they were able to get
Just
that.
from my
that
time
fixed.
there with the youth leagues and stuff like that, like, again, I know it's been an ongoing problem, so I
Lot
was
of-
glad to see that.
lot of
off
alarm
the-
silencing.
Out of the maintenance headaches, so.
Sure.
Okay, anything else? Hearing nothing, move on. At this time, entertain a motion for the board to approve the request for a special meeting on Monday, July 31st for personnel approvals for the 23-24 school year.
So moved. I presume with my motion, 6 o'clock or 6
Well,
PM.
that was one thing I was going to ask Mr. Huggins. We could, with that being a very limited agenda, if there was any consideration, a daytime consideration, I think that would be helpful to Mrs. Varner, but
Well, let's get to second, and then we can get to
Understood.
discussion and amend it.
absolutely.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Tatham. Questions or comments? Now let's look at the time, okay? Not trying to cut you off. I'm
No,
trying to
thank
do
you,
it
thank you,
right.
Mr. Huggins.
I'm learning each week.
Would you guys be open to like a 7:30 in the morning?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, in all serious, I mean, just
Yeah.
early
We could
in the
do,
morning.
no, that could be accommodated.
Early in the
I
morning would be
can't-
better
I-
for me
I
on a
can't-
work day, like.
Well, if I can't be here that day that early. But if Miss Feathers can be here, I'll make sure, because that was one I may not be able, how long will that meeting be?
Personnel would be the only item on there, Mr. Huggins.
Okay, I probably can do 7:30 then.
I mean, I'm fine with 7. I'd be here at 6:30.
I will say this, board members,
Kisner.
I will be in attendance at our Administrators Academy. Mrs. Varner did plan to be back here in Kingwood. She was going to participate by Zoom call. So she would serve as the board secretary on that date if we entertain that date. But she had respectfully asked if that could be a consideration with the number of personnel hires we were needing.
And still have the regular meeting then as well.
We still have the meeting on the 14th for sure, yes.
Okay.
Because she had several positions closed
Because it was
today.
originally from August 7th, what she was thinking about.
What I'd had on the agenda initially on Wednesday, she thought it would be August 7th. She said the 31st would actually be more beneficial at this juncture. So we would have any prospective hires on the agenda by this coming Friday.
Okay, so there's some talk of 7:30, okay? Before we do we do need to do an amendment because there's not a time on there.
Right. Yeah. And I was just saying, if 7:30 was problematic for you, if earlier was better, I'm
No,
fine
it's-
with
I should be
earlier.
okay,
Just wasn't, I
'cause
don't want to
it's-
interfere with your schedule.
It wouldn't be a long meeting, so that would be.
You can hope I don't talk.
We maybe can ensure that happens because we have the microphone buttons. Okay, does somebody want to make an amendment?
I move that we amend the motion to make the meeting at 7:30 a.m.
Second.
Okay, there's been amended to make the meeting begin at 7:30. on that date. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote on the amendment.
Yeah, this ought to be a voice vote.
And this is a voice vote.
Yes.
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 Okay, 4-0.
Okay, July 31st at 7:30. Now,
And that's AM.
it's 8. I deserve that one. Okay, 7:30 a.m. Next, we will vote on the original, and that is our regular voting. And then one of you have to notify Ms. Feathers what time the meeting is.
Members of the media, too, the only item that will be on that agenda is just professional and service personnel. Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Okay, all kidding aside, it's nice to end on laughter. One final comment just for me, and I say it every time, and I know we started the night remembering 2 former board employees and board member. I'm always afraid we miss somebody. That's the only part that scares me, and we sure don't ever want to do that. So,
Anniversary over there.
yeah, I don't do birthdays and that kind of stuff because people get mad at me. I learned a long time ago not to do that. Primarily from my wife with birthdays. Okay. With that said, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Ziegler. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. Are you texting Ms. Feathers to tell her?
Voting is open.
I am right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. Huggins, I'll send a digital copy of the packet to Mrs. Feathers, and I'll send her a copy of the. I feel bad I missed my reading of Mrs. Moran's letter at the onset of the meeting. The audio wasn't turned on. Motion passes 4-0. It's 7:50.
And I do want to thank everybody.
Mr. Sines, can you shut that off, please?
Married, so 15 since 2005 years. But we've been together for 20 years.